You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host and bourbon-soaked storyteller, Juliette Miranda.
Hey there, y'all. It's Juliette Miranda, and this is episode 140 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. I have two bourbon-soaked stories for y'all today about a blow to the face and dashboard butt prints. Both stories take place over one epic summer evening with my friend Crazytown. But first, y'all, let's get comfortable with some bourbon. I'm pouring myself a glass of Breaker wheated bourbon. Cheers. So I bought this bourbon on a whim because I saw that it's wheated, and I do love me a good wheated bourbon. Especially in the summer, it really is a perfect sipping cocktail. Now, just a little bit of background for you. To call a bourbon wheated, that means that it is at least 51% corn in the mash, and then typically it replaces the rye with wheat. So that gives it a little bit more of a sweet and smooth flavor, which is why I really enjoy it in the summer. Probably the two most readily available wheated bourbons are Maker's Mark and Larceny, if that gives you an idea of the flavor profile. So this Breaker wheated bourbon has been aged about 5 years, and it's not bad. It's really big on the vanilla, and it's sweet but not sticky. And I think at the end there's just a little bit of smoke. I will say, though, at $40 a bottle, I'm not in love with the price tag for the flavor. I think I'd rather get a bottle of something like $17.92 for that. But either way, this is a really drinkable bourbon. In fact, it's so easy to drink, this could be a little bit of a problem for a gal like me. Either way, cheers, y'all. We had a rainy night here just a couple of days ago, and my guy and I decided to stay in and watch the movie Dazed and Confused. This is one of my absolute favorite movies. It's a coming-of-age story, it's set in the 70s, and it's about one epic summer night. And movies like that, well, they always just resonate with me because as far as I am concerned, there is no greater pleasure in life than a crazy summer night. And y'all know I've had my fair share of summer mayhem and mischief. I still do. But for all the trouble that my guy and I get up to right now, I have to say I still have a reluctant fondness for the summer nights that I spent back in the day with my girlfriend Crazytown. Oh, she was so perfectly suited for summertime. She had that long blonde hair and the instant tan and the reckless enthusiasm that I never could resist. Especially during that summer when she and I were both 18 and fresh high school graduates. My parents had loosened their grip on my social life by then. They were under the illusion that I had proven myself to be a responsible human being. In fact, they were so confident in my adulting that they decided to go on a short vacation and leave me alone in the house for 3 whole days. They were correct to assume that I wouldn't throw any wild parties while they were away. That just wasn't my style. I mean, even back then, I wasn't much of a people person, so I didn't relish the idea of having them invade our house. But where my parents went wrong was in believing that I would follow the house rules in their absence. They were barely out of the driveway before I grabbed the keys to my dad's car. Oh, it was a beautiful car. It was a Porsche 944, a souped-up replica of the car that Jake Ryan drove in 16 Candles. And it was completely off limits. You know, and thinking about it right now, I'm almost impressed by how easily I grabbed those keys. Outright defiance of perfectly reasonable rules did not come naturally to me. Because I totally understood why my dad didn't want me driving that car. I just didn't care. That night, plans called for the coolest car I could get my sticky little paws on, and my own beater just wasn't going to cut it. Oh, I slid the key into the ignition, and as that just tremendous, beautiful car purred into life, I admit for a moment I might have hesitated before backing out of the driveway. Because to that point, I'd really only driven the car twice. And both of those times were with my dad. And he only let me take it around the block before he insisted we return to the safety of the driveway. Yeah, this time I was going to be going a hell of a lot farther. And it did occur to me that this probably wasn't a good idea. But one look at that stunning summer sky and a quick inhale of sultry air, and all of my reservations just vanished. I pulled out, and I went to pick up Crazytown. She gave a long, low whistle when she saw that Porsche. You see, I hadn't told her that I would be taking it, mostly because I was afraid that I would chicken out, and I really didn't want to have to live that down. So she's walking up to the car, and Motley Crue's song Slice of Your Pie is playing. And I'll tell you, to this day, I can't hear that song without just picturing Crazytown gliding across the leather car seat in her cut-off jean shorts, and then feeling her squeezing my hand. And she just looks at me and she goes, "This is going to be the best night ever." Our destination was Cousins. It was a drive-in diner known for Italian beef sandwiches and a large assortment of local musicians cruising for chicks. It was the place to be seen. Our parents would never have knowingly allowed us to go there. Cousins was just barely on the right side of the railroad tracks. I mean, you make a wrong turn in that area, and it was way too easy to wind up in a South Side neighborhood where just the year prior, a guy I knew was found without his head. Not that any of this popped into our own goofy little heads. We were just on the prowl for good-looking musicians. And there were plenty to choose from. Cousins was lit up and loud when we got there. Mustangs, Camaros, a few classic Thunderbirds were all lined up in front, and they were all just gleaming under the neon drive-in lights. Long-haired guys leaned against car doors. Couples were making out along the darkened back brick wall. It seemed that everyone was up for anything, including us. I gunned the engine and I roared into the last available stall, surprising even Crazytown, who kind of gripped the door handle in a panic. I liked having just the slightest advantage over Crazytown right then, because it wasn't often that I did, and I fully intended to take advantage of it. So I look over at her and I go, "Why don't you go grab us some cheese fries, and I'll stay here?" Crazytown raises her eyebrows, and I'm like, "That's right, girlie. It's your turn to play fetch while I get to stand around looking pretty." I prop myself up against the rear bumper and I cast bait. And as she's walking away, I'm approached by what was, for the day, a stunningly good-looking guy with long, dark hair. He was everything that I was hoping to meet that night. And I was so stupidly jazzed by the possibility that he presented, I didn't exactly listen to what he said to me. I just reacted. He probably said hi or how's it going or something along those lines. And if I wasn't a blathering moron, I would have responded like a normal person. Instead, I coughed up the very first thing that popped into my head, which was 16-valve double overhead camshaft. The hell was that? The words just plowed out of my face in a quick stream of nonsense. I think I had memorized it after listening to my dad waxing poetic about his car, and I had hoped that I could drop the phrase into conversation later, to impress somebody. I certainly hadn't intended on wasting it as word vomit. So this poor guy, he's just confused and he shakes his head and walks away. And I'm thinking, maybe I should have been the one to get the cheese fries after all. Crazytown was so much better at introducing us to guys. So I'm relieved when she returns. And for the next few minutes, the world at Cousins just ceases to exist as we are devouring those cheese fries like two gators at a theme park. I'll tell you, men could come and go throughout our friendship, but nothing ever came between us and a plate of cheese fries. But the minute they're gone, Crazytown springs into action. She pulls me to my feet and fluffs my hair and reaches for her lip gloss, because there are two guys who have caught her attention across the parking lot, and she is very ready to make friends. These guys were both mini replicas of Fabio. The long blonde hair, the shaved big chests, and completely vacant expressions. The Fabio twins greet Crazytown as though she is exactly the girl that they have been waiting for. And she responds by walking up to the best looking of the two and plants this juicy kiss right on his lips. Well, at least there would be no questions about her intentions. We begin chatting with these guys who inform us that there's going to be a bonfire in a local forest preserve that night, complete with kegs. Now, when we hear this, Crazytown and I do our best to look, non-committal. But I'll tell you, inside, we were freaking the hell out. Because, y'all, we had just been invited to the Bangerwood Keg Party. Now, I know that probably doesn't mean anything to y'all, but let me tell you, it was the stuff of legend. I mean, this is the kind of party that you only hear about after the fact from a friend of a friend who knew someone who went. And she and I had been looking for a way to get an invite to this party since freshman year. So now, after just 30 minutes of cousins, we had one, and it was just mind-blowing. And as I stood there in that neon lot, licking cheesy salt from my lips and just engulfed in the steamy presence of the Fabio twins, I had a feeling Crazytown might be right. This was going to be the best night ever. And it really was for a minute or two. And then it was shot to hell by the shrill battle cry of a chick bent on revenge. Lord, what now? A girl comes racing across the parking lot toward us, and she is just screaming at Crazytown, just accusing her of sleeping with her boyfriend and all sorts of stuff. And I look at Crazytown and I say, have you been sleeping with her boyfriend? And she just shrugs and goes, maybe. This crazy chick kind of seems confident that she's found her rage target. And those Fabio twins, they just look excited as all get out. Kind of like they'd won first row seats to a slutty cage fight. So this maniac girl runs up to Crazytown, and I've got my keys in my hand because I'm ready to book to the car. But Crazytown, she holds her ground. Despite being the alleged bad guy in this scenario, Crazytown has all the poise of Glinda confronting the Wicked Witch of the West. She just kind of waves her hand in the air to dismiss this chick, and then tries to keep the conversation going with the Fabio twins. But this maniac is not having it. She is screaming, "You whore!" And she wails the word loud enough to attract the attention of everyone in the lot. And she just places herself right in front of Crazytown. I mean, they're standing boob to boob, and they're eyeballing each other just with intense distaste. Now, I can see that Crazytown really doesn't want to get into it. So me, dumb me, who to that point had no experience in refereeing parking lot fights, I decide I'm going to intervene. I touch Crazytown on the shoulder and I say, maybe we should leave. I just wanted to diffuse the tension and break things up, not knowing that it's never a good idea to get between a scorned girl and the one she blames for it. That insane chick immediately turns all of her anger on me and she screams, "This doesn't concern you, bitch!" Then she winds up, and I am so blown away at how quickly this escalates. I just stand there, and I take a vicious, nails-first blow to my cheek. And white light just explodes around my face. And all I can register in that moment is just pain and screaming. I'm shaking my head and I'm touching my face, and as my eyes kind of refocus, I see that Crazytown has grabbed this chick by the hair, and she is dragging her through the parking lot, looking for a place to throw her. At the moment, my vote was just to toss her into oncoming traffic, but Crazytown sends her tumbling into a pile of gravel. And then she gives me a quick glance to see if I'm okay, and then gives me the nod, which I know means now is the time to haul ass to the car. As we dash off, Crazytown turns around and she yells out to the Fabio twins, "Hey, we'll see you guys at the party later." Oh yeah, that's my friend all right. Polite to a fault. We pile into the car and had just slammed our doors shut when that maniac catches up to us and begins pounding her fists on the hood. And I'm wincing because she's pounding on my dad's car. And she's screaming, Get out here and fight, you bitches! No thank you. I back out, and I do my best to not run her over because that would just be rude. And I swerve out of the parking lot and back out onto the main road. About a mile later, I spot a gas station and we stop. Crazytown runs in and buys some antiseptic and aspirin and a couple of cans of Coke. She explains that they were out of ice and holds a can of Coke against my bruised cheek. I wince because, God damn it, that hurt. And I look at her and I say, how is it that you have sex with some chick's guy and I'm the one who winds up getting gored? Crazytown's silent for a minute as she applies some antiseptic to my swelling cheek. But then a wicked smile creeps onto her lips, and she looks me dead in the eye and she says, oh, probably because I got to him before you could. Gotta love that Crazytown logic. And now, y'all, I'm going to have a little bit of my bourbon. Hold, please. So even after that brawl, I gotta say, there was no question about whether we would be going into that forest preserve. Because that party was too important in our social world to miss. And we knew it really could be our one and only chance to see if it lived up to the hype. I had been hearing about Banger Wood, which was often affectionately referred to as Bang Her Wood, since about the 6th grade. That was about the time when most parents started telling their kids to stay away from the woods. I mean, we all heard stories about this place. It was where girls lost their virginity, and of course, there were the legendary wild all-night parties. It was never entirely clear who orchestrated these parties or who bought the booze. Invitations were just passed down through word of mouth, and they would reach people from all over the south suburbs. And it's funny, really. A couple of years later, I would read in the paper that a police sting had broken up a huge drug and prostitution ring that was operating out of those woods. I can't say that it surprised me, but I will say that to us, Banger Wood was just a place to hang out. Although, as I was about to find out, it sure as hell was not easy to find. We got to the outskirts of the woods just fine. But the directions that the Fabio twins had given us to get into the woods, those were sketchy at best. After driving around for a few minutes, Crazytown spots a utility road just off one of the public parking lots. I use the word road loosely here, because it's really more just tire treads between trees. And remember, I'm in a Porsche, so I've got to ease this thing off the smooth pavement and onto this uneven terrain. And I'm driving maybe 5 miles an hour. And as I do, I just hear branches and twigs assaulting the sides of the car, just scraping and dragging for every inch that we move. I mean, it really just cut through to my core, and I'm starting to freak out a little bit. And meanwhile, Crazytown is antsy, and she's just urging me to speed up. She's all, going slow isn't going to make this any better. Sure. Easy words coming from the passenger. I mean, it's pitch black in those woods. I can barely see more than 5 feet in front of me, and half of my vision is blocked thanks to Crazytown applying mascara in the rearview mirror. I grab the makeup from her, and I suggest that she had better do a better job at navigating, or I swear to God I was going to turn that car around and go home. When I said it, the two of us just start cracking up because, Jesus Christ, when did I become my fucking mother? But Crazytown does simmer down a little bit, and she starts watching where we're going and eventually instructs me to turn right, which I do. And the deeper into these woods we go, the more rapey it seems. I mean, I am really beginning to have serious doubts about this whole thing when Crazytown grabs my arm and tells me to stop. Listen, she says. I half expect her to pull an urban legend out of her ass and tell me that there's a hook scraping on the side of the car door now. But as I stick my head out the window, it is not Candyman that I hear, but Cheap Trick. The music is faint but discernible, which means we have got to be getting closer. I could tell now why these parties were so elusive. They were buried so damn deep in those woods The only way to spot them was to fly overhead. Eventually, the path opened up, though, and we came into a huge clearing. Oh, sweet relief. There it was. The Banger Woods party. And y'all, even on sight, it was obvious that this party was everything we had heard about and more. A bonfire roared at the center of the clearing. Great White's Once Bitten, Twice Shy was now blaring from a boombox, which was positioned between two kegs. There's a pickup truck sitting off to one side, and it's got a tub of a mysterious red liquid known as guac, which I would later learn was Everclear and High C. And everywhere we looked, there were guys. Gorgeous, long-haired guys. I mean, it was a lusty nirvana. Crazytown is beaming, and she throws her arms around me the second I put the car in park. Of all of the rites of passage of high school, from homecoming to prom to graduation, I'll tell you, getting to the Bangerwood party was the one event that really mattered to us. I do a quick check in the mirror, and I am dismayed at the throbbing gash on my face. It looks more like I've attempted to break up a cockfight than a catfight. I mean, this thing has my worst zit trumped by at least 3 inches. Crazytown gives me a quick squeeze, and she says, "Don't worry, honey. We'll make it work." Make it work? Only Crazytown could find a way to spin a battle scar into something sexy. We're immediately surrounded as we get out of the car. The Porsche had finally worked its magic and lured all of the interesting guys our way. And as Crazytown spreads the story that I had earned my gash by practically saving her life, well, she and I became instant party celebrities. Drinks slide into our hands, and she and I are just at our absolute best then, dancing and flirting and loving every second of that summer night. I'm having such a good time, I eventually lose track of Crazytown. It was a bit of a rookie mistake, but in my defense, the Fabio twins had resurfaced, and without Crazytown by my side, I got to be the center of their attention. Still, the difference between me and Crazytown is that I would eventually remember she and I had come there together. So it's about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the party is going strong. A few bands have shown up after finishing a gig at a nearby rock club, and I see they're pulling guitars out of their cars for an after-show performance. But Crazytown? Missing. This wasn't the first time she'd gone missing on me. She had a habit of following whatever shiny object caught her eye. But usually we were in a contained location, like a mall or a club. Finding her in the middle of 40-acre woods was a new and alarming prospect. I wasn't worried about her exactly, and clearly she knew how to take care of herself. But I always believed in an implied friendship responsibility. You just look out for each other. Which meant I was going to have to untangle myself from the Fabio twins. And you know, I gotta hand it to those Fabio twins. They were decent guys. They could have just as easily found another chick to hang out with, but instead they grabbed a flashlight from their car and joined me in my hunt. Sure, they probably had ulterior motives, but at least they were helpful. We sifted through the crowd around the bonfire first, then moved on to the outskirts of the party, where people were congregated by the booze and making out on blankets. But trying to find Crazytown in a sea of other crazy blondes was a little like trying to find a Bon Jovi fan at a Motley Crue concert. You know she's there somewhere, but god damn if you can tell the difference. I really didn't want to carry this search party into the woods. It wasn't that I didn't trust the Fabio twins. I didn't trust the woods. So instead, we started checking cars. Which, were this a few years later, would have been the first place I looked. Couples were none too pleased to have us shining a flashlight into their windows like a bunch of peeping toms, but what else could we do? So I look and I see my dad's car tucked under a tree, and it doesn't even occur to me at first to check it. I mean, after all, I had the keys. But as we walk past, I see that the windows are foggy. And in my complete innocence, I mean, my first thought is that, oh, maybe it's just the humidity. but humidity does not leave handprints on glass. I grab the flashlight from the Fabios and I shine it into the front. And god damn it, there's fucking Crazytown, buck naked and straddling some guy. They're so contorted in car sex, they don't even notice us gawking at them. I'm speechless. How the hell did she get in the car? I feel the pockets of my jean shorts, fully expecting to find the car keys, but I come up empty. So my mind is just racing, and I'm thinking back and remembering us dancing by the fire earlier in the night. I have a hazy recollection of Crazytown putting her hands on my hips. Did she steal my car keys then? Great. That means that my girlfriend is both an inconsiderate nympho and a grifter. I wasn't sure if I should be impressed or pissed off. Mostly, I was just grossed out. She was having sex in my dad's car. Full-on, sweaty, sticky, bare ass on the steering wheel sex. Couldn't they have at least put a towel down? I pound on the window, and I'm all, wrap it up, kids. And that damn Crazytown, you know what she does? She waves at me. Waves! Naked and waving, as if defiling the seats of my dad's goddamn Porsche is the most natural thing in the world that she could be doing. Ugh, Crazytown. I shake my head, and I have no choice but just to go on back to the bonfire with the Fabio twins. We sit and watch the band play for a little while, and the entire time I am eyeballing the car. Crazytown eventually tumbles out and parts ways with whoever that was, and then she just bounces right up to me saying, "Hey, want to go get some breakfast, girlie? It's my treat." Crazytown is always ready to fix anything with food. We say our goodbyes and drive to a local truck stop, the whole while just inhaling the ripe funk of sex. I mean, there's an ass print on the dashboard, for fuck's sake. And I just look at my girlfriend and I say, "Really?" She shrugs. Apparently, sex in a car isn't as easy as she thought it would be. After breakfast, we drove home, where Crazytown and I do our best to wash and delouse that car. Surprisingly, the branches hadn't really done any damage to the exterior. But I'll tell you, I could never ride in that car again without feeling just the slightest bit skeeved out. As for my parents, once they returned from vacation, I told them just enough truth about the night to distract them from the lies. I mean, there was no way I could hide the swollen mess on my cheek. They had their suspicions, of course. I mean, they weren't morons. And about a week later, my dad comes up to me and he says, "Hey, while we were out of town, did you take my car out?" My heart just starts pounding. But I'd already prepared a cover story, which I dish out as gracefully as I can. And I say, "Yeah, I backed it out of the garage to get to the loft. Why do you ask?" He scratches his chin and says, "Oh, it's nothing." And he starts to walk away, but he stops short. And then he turns around and hands me something. Oh, oh, y'all. I just feel the color drain from my face as I realize that he has just handed me the tube of antiseptic Crazytown bought for me. My mouth opens, but I have zero words for this. And my dad, being my dad, just lets me stew and panic for a good minute. Then he looks at me and he says, "Oh, I guess it just fell out of your pocket." He gives me a smile that says he is totally onto me, but he doesn't say another word and walks away. Whew. Well, if that was the worst thing that my dad found in that car, I'd say we all came out ahead. And now I'm raising up my glass and I am drinking to Crazy Summer Nights. Cheers, y'all. Hey, speaking of crazy summer nights, I've got something for y'all. I am going to be in New Orleans this August. And while I'm there, I will be speaking at the Modern Love Convention. It runs August 10th through the 12th. There's going to be tons of other podcasters there. It's going to be a great time. If you want to learn more about it, just go to pattern.love. That's the website, pattern.love. And if you're so inclined to purchase tickets, you can get a 20% discount by using the code PWLT at checkout. And here's another little crazy idea for you. While we're in New Orleans, the Red Dress Run is going to be taking place. It's my favorite event in the quarter. I'm stupid excited about it. You know you want to put on a red dress and join me for this. And now, y'all, I'm going to go drink myself some more bourbon and get into that summer trouble mode. Hope y'all have a great week. I'll be back to chat with you again next. Thanks for listening. Cheers, y'all.
Go to theunwritablерant.com and sign up to get early access to interviews and new videos. And don't forget to connect with Juliette on Twitter at Morning Neurosis.
Girl, you as pretty as a Sunday morning, standing on the corner at Carondelet. What you say we make our way up to Bourbon, a couple hurricanes and a hand grenade, and get blown away. Let the chips fall where they may. If it's all the same, what you say, bon ton, hey, pretty mama, I can smell the gumbo. Sweetest taste of honeysuckle on my lips. Good God Almighty, I can hear the trombone. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this. Come a little closer, honey, let me hold you. Nothing tastes better than a bourbon kiss. You can be the flower on my magnolia. Every heart ought to beat to a rhythm like this.